Bats are found almost everywhere. They come from giant flying foxes with 6-foot wingspans to tiny little bumblebee bats that weigh a third less than a penny. And contrary to traditional misconceptions, lots of bats are just as cute as any puppy or kitten at home. Each has its own unique personality and IQ. Right here on the Princeton campus, some of your most beautiful wildlife are bats. Some are truly sophisticated. Some are just as strange as any dinosaur. And for every dinosaur, there's a jolly good fellow. Now, wherever you find bats, whatever they look like, they're incredibly sophisticated animals. This California leaf-nosed bat can hear the footsteps of a walking cricket. It has night vision on a part of their best military night vision scopes. So sensitive, in fact, that it can spot tiny insects asleep in foliage on all but the darkest moonless and overcast nights. And it has stealth echolocation that prevents its prey from hearing it and taking evasive action before it gets there. And it can survive in the hottest, driest deserts of America for months at a time without drinking a drop of water. Pallid bats are immune to the stings of even the deadly scorpions and centipedes upon which they feed. Fishing bats can detect objects as fine as a human hair and just 2 millimeters long on the surface of a pond of water. Frog-eating bats can identify every frog in the jungle by its unique mating call. Sucker-footed bats can walk right up a window pane at home. They don't live in your home area, but in the jungles where they live in large uncoiling leaves, and they can walk right up the leaf surfaces with these suction discs. Then there are other bats that live in leaves but don't have to have suction discs because they cut the midribs of the leaf to make a tent. These little guys blend in really well. Green just like the leaf around them. But you know what? When you shine a bright light on them, it turns out they're snow white. This is a male with his little harem. And speaking of getting together, some of the most spectacular courtship displays in the whole world of mammals are found in bats. This epauletted bat male has pouches in his shoulders where he can hide fluffy epaulets of fur, and when he goes courting, he can flash these and do a song and dance that seems to be very effective. This is a crested bat. Male crested bats can spread a special crest that is normally hidden in their fur, just like a peacock spreads its tail. And they too sing to their mates. Now, if you had a face like this next bat, and I may need verification that it really exists. Scott and Helen McVeigh were with me the night we photographed this, and in fact, Jeff and Helen McCopian here may have been too. This next bat does have a strange face, I must admit. But nature has provided. When this guy needs to go courting, he has a special flap right here. And you can pull that up and talk about a disguise. If you women ever thought males were a bunch of cheaters, it gets even worse than you dream. And what self-respecting bat would ever want to go court? That you can't do good conservation and conserve just one group of animals or just several groups of animals and leave some out. These groups are all interdependent. In fact, this Gila woodpecker is nesting in a huge cardone cactus that is extremely dependent upon bats for pollination and seed dispersal. And he's feeding his young the fruit of the highly dependent, bat-dependent organ pipe cactus. I go to Australia and people just despise flying foxes and would practically give their lives for a koala, and yet they don't realize that almost every plant that the koala needs to survive is bat-dependent for propagation. Go a little bit further south into the American tropics, Latin America, and approximately half of all mammal species are bats. They play absolutely critical roles in maintaining this whole ecosystem that is literally the lungs and the rainmaker for our planet. Key seed dispersers. This bat's about to take a fig. This Corollia bat taking piper fruit. When dispersing these types of fruits that have little seeds, these bats, just one bat, can disperse 60,000 seeds, carrying them to new locations in a single night. And if only 1% of the seeds dispersed by an average-sized colony of these bats were to germinate and become seedlings, you'd have 100,000 new seedlings in a single year just from one small colony of one species, and we're talking about a couple hundred species of bats in the American rainforest. So the impact is enormous. Now, it's not just Latin America or southern U.S. where bats are important. Let's take a big jump all the way to the savannas of eastern Africa. I don't think very many of you have to think very long to know that's a baobab tree. This is one of the most famous trees on the planet. It's also often referred to as the African tree of life because so many other plants and animals depend on it for their survival. Well, guess who pollinates it? Bats are critically important pollinators, and it makes me extremely distressed to travel in parts of Africa today where I know there should be whole flocks of fruit bats visiting the flowers at dusk and find none. And no new seedlings. That should scare us about the future of things like the baobab. A lot of these bat-dependent trees and shrubs are also very economically dependent, as you've already seen with the agave that produces tequila. This spectacled flying fox is about to, well, he's pollinating a black bean tree, one of the most valued timber trees of Australia. This Jamaican fruit-eating bat is obviously doing a great job of pollinating balsa wood tree. And this little short-nosed flying fox is pollinating wild banana. I had a major botany professor call me just this last week and express his deepest concern about the decline of progenitor species of our domestic bananas. They're all bat-dependent for pollination and seed dispersal, and he was quite alarmed by the fact that bats were declining so rapidly that in areas of his study there was insufficient pollination taking place. This is a huge industry, just this one producing bananas, and yet we could lose the genetic material it takes to keep our cultivars healthy into the future and develop new varieties if we don't protect the bats that pollinate the wild bananas.